It's already God's. Read it. And it's the words in red. So you can be mad at me, but you're just shooting the messenger. Your real problem is with him. So I hear so many people say, well, I'm so generous. Well, not really. It's a good habit. It's a good lifestyle. But if you really want to be generous, start to give 11, 12, 13%. But what I believe is when we give the first 10% to God, then the other 90% is now redeemed and we've broken that spirit. What I've realized is once you start to give the 10% to God, you realize that this 90%, you not just have 90%, it's like you have more. And then you're like, well, I have more, I might as well help more people. And you help more people, and then all of a sudden you have more. It's not a prosperity gospel. Let me tell you the difference. In this idea of breaking the spirit of mammon, the question is, what can I give? When you're following after God, what can I give? How can I help somebody else? I see another need, I'm going to meet that need. And you say, I don't understand how it works, because I know how much I have in my checking account, but God, you told me to give, and I'm going to give, and guess what? When I live according to the Spirit, I'm in step with the Spirit, I always have all that I need. I still have a lot of wants, right? But I have all that I need. When we live over here under the spirit of mammon, the question is, what can I get? The prosperity gospel is, what can I get? Living righteously, living holy is asking, God, what can I give? Luke 6:10 says, he that is faithful, which was in the least, is faithful in what is much. He that is unjust, the least, is unjust with what is much. If you have not been faithful in what is another's man's, who shall give you what is your own? I love you just saying, if I give you a little bit, guess what? If you can be faithful a little bit, I'm going to give you a little bit more. If you're going to be faithful a little bit more, guess what? I'm going to give you a little bit more. And if at any point you start to be unfaithful because it's not yours, I'm just not going to give it to you. It's in red. Don't shoot the messenger. That's what it says. But what I love is Luke 16:9. And I say unto you, make for yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, you may receive into the everlasting habitations. There's a reason why we read it in IV, right? Because the KJV, there's sometimes I read it and I go, what? This is one of those instances. Let me read it again to you. It's Luke 16:9. And I say unto you, make to yourselves friends of the mammon of unrighteousness, that when ye fail, they may receive you into everlasting habitations. I look at that and I'm like, I have no idea what that means, right? So I go to somebody who's much smarter, this is Robert Morris, and this is what he says. Because in my interpretations, the way I understand it is, let's just take this money, let's give it to other people, right? They'll be friends with us. So that if I ever lose my job, or lose my house, or lose my family, right? Because I've given them other stuff, they'll say, hey, he scratched my back, so I can scratch his, or I can give him some money. That's what it kind of sounds like. And he says, no, not at all. The mammon of unrighteousness, what he's talking about is money. Right? This is what you're going to do with this money is you're going to leverage it for God. What does that mean? That means you're going to take the mammon of unrighteousness, this money, you're going to give it to God, ask him to redeem it. And after he redeems the rest of the 90%, we're going to use it to reach other people. What does this mean? Again, I'm glad you asked. We're going to take these tithes and offerings, right? Why do we take tithes and offerings? To give us the opportunity, every single one of us the opportunity. I tell you, when it comes to this idea of money and wanting to hold on to it, right, and put it in a rainy day account, I am the chief among sinners, right? My wife would give the clothes off of her back and then my back, right? I'm all of a sudden walking around, where'd my shirt go? Right? Well, all of a sudden what I've started to realize is when we when we give, the math never makes sense to me, right? And this is what this verse means. That when we give to the church, because we do the math, right? We're going, well, this is how much I have left over, and then this is my leftovers, and I can give it to the church. Did you hear that? This is what I have left over, and so this is what I have left over, that's what I can give to the church. Hit the rewind button. So you're going to give your leftovers to God? Really? Wow. Like, if the president was coming to your house, you're like, hey, we had like this mashed potatoes and this meatloaf stuff we had a week ago, and this is what I'm going to give it to you. Right? No! What are you going to do? So you don't go get like a five-star restaurant, right? You don't take them out somewhere really that, right? And that's the president who nobody likes. Correction. Okay, some of you may like the president. A lot of people don't like him, right? But it's God, and we're saying for whatever reason we're going to give God our leftovers. He's hitting the edit button right now and rewind, like, man, the CIA is going to show up one day. Like, what are you saying? Right? And I look around in your eyes, and I see for some people you're sitting back like, well, you don't understand, Ben. I don't have any money. So this message ain't for me. Right? You're nudging the person next to you and say, I know you got money. Maybe you better make sure you're listening. Right? And we say, as soon as God decides like to take my 90% and bless me and give me a little bit more, then I'll come back and I'll go online and listen to this message. Can I share something with you? You're going to hear a lot today you may not like. A lot that you may not agree with. But if you're giving God leftovers and you're thieving his 10%, you really think he's going to give you more? He that is faithful with little, if you've not been faithful with what God has given you, which is another man's, why is he going to give you your own? That's Luke 6, 10, and 12. But we have this mentality of poverty, right? Well, I don't have anything, Pastor. You don't understand. Go read about the widow and her two mites. I believe that God blesses us in the exact same proportion to our obedience. Right? That's where you can say amen. Hey, there it is. Right? Nobody likes to hear that. Like, ooh, that would hurt me. Right? It isn't you have not because you ask not. I believe that we're living under the spirit of mammon. To break the spirit of mammon is you have to. It's a command. Give to the church. Right? Now, I'm a pastor. I was trying to actually talk to my friend Jim, who's the director of generosity for the Wesleyan Church. I tried to convince him to come and give this message so I can sit in the front row going, Amen! Amen! But he wouldn't do it for whatever reason, so I have to bring the message because that's the reason I'm the pastor. Because listen to this. This is how the cycle works. In Luke 16:11 says this. When you take your tithe, when you take your 10%, what I believe is God redeems it. And you're necessarily, I don't know if you're ever going to get the $30,000 car. I'm not guaranteeing you to have the best health. But you know what's going to happen? We now have the money to reach another soul. The church is the hope of the local world. The church is the hope of the world. The local church is the hope of the world. We only exist by what you give. I was reading up on this and I was like, this number blew me away. Right? The average church, the average person, the average Christian in America today gives 2.5% of their income. 2.5%. The average Christian, 2.5%. Again, the number's 10. You really want me to stop talking about money? You really want to be blessed by God? Increase your giving fourfold. That's 10%. You realize that, right? Now, this is the average, so if you're already at 10%, good job. The challenge is to be generous, right? Give away another 2 or 3% to somebody else. And I'm not saying, right? And I'm not saying give this to a different organization that's doing it. I'm talking about your local church. Why? Because when you redeem the money, when you break the spirit of mammon, and you give to the church, God takes that money, your faithfulness, your obedience, and you may never see that. But when it says, when you fail, they will welcome you into eternal habitations. What that passage means is, when you take that money, God redeems it and reaches lost people. The rest of this is going to burn. Right? There's going to be a new heaven and a new earth. The only thing that's going to last are the words of God. You know what else? The people of God. So the question I have for you is, Who's going to be in heaven because of your faithfulness? When you put that money into the offering plate, this is what I love. When Robert Morris said this, I was writing so fast, like my pen was smoking. I kid you not. He said, every time we take an offering, we're able to take lives out of hell and put them in heaven. We're not doing it. God's doing it because it's through our obedience. It's our faithfulness. So you want to say, well, am I afraid to talk about money? No. Why? Because I believe that's the biggest spiritual battle that takes place every single second of every single day. Who are you going to serve? God, who offers everything that Mammon promises us. Choose this day whom you will serve. You can't serve both. And I tell you, if you want a money-back guarantee, I'll give you a money-back guarantee. We'll track your tithing the next 30, 60, 90 days. If you say, you know what, I'm going to step out in faith and I'm going to give my 10%. And then 30, 60, 90 days from now, if you're not a better believer, that means if you don't have more love and more joy and more peace and more patience and more kindness and more forgiveness and more self-control, what we'll do, we'll give you your money back. I don't know how we'll do it. If I have to go get a credit card and charge it, I'll pay it back to you. I so believe in this message. We have the systems and the programs and the procedures and the policies in place, and we know the outcome. I think this year, the budget that we have is, I think we need, $5,000 more to come in than we gave last year. $5,000. That's kind of backwards math, right? And I want to give even more away. Why? Because I believe that there's people here today saying, you know what, Pastor, I'm not giving anything. So from 0 to 1%, that's a huge increase, right? I think people today are saying, you know, I'm not 2.5%, I'm going to try to give 5%. Our budget last year was just over $60,000. If everybody gave twice as much, we'd be at $120,000. We're not talking about money. If you then double that again, we're at $250,000. We're going to be to the point where we're going to say, you know, we have more money than we know what to do with. Guess what we're going to do? We're just going to keep giving them away. Because who are we going to serve? There's a story that comes from Thailand. And what would happen in Thailand is they believed that these elephants were sacred. And the white albino elephant was the most sacred of them all. And so it was the white elephant really was this idol or this item of huge esteem. And everybody never wanted to own a white elephant because they only had a special diet. If anybody came to see the white elephant, you had to then house them as they wanted to come see this sacred animal. And usually what would happen, because the cost of maintaining the white elephant was so exorbitant, usually what happens, it would bankrupt the person that received it as a gift. Well, certain kings realized this, and so they leveraged this as an attack. So if another kingdom was getting too powerful, if another king became too burdensome, what they would do is they would go and they would have hunters go out and trap this white elephant. Then they would take the white elephant and present it as a gift to this other dignitary. Why? Because they knew they would bankrupt them. The question I have for us is, what are the white elephants in our life? What are the possessions that we have that are much more valuable? They cost so much more to maintain than really the benefit that they're giving to us. If you want to break the spirit of mammon, stop focusing on the possessions. There's a reason they're called possessions, because pretty soon they take possession.